Foundation. I know foundation is a pain. You don't know where to try it. It's the wrong color. It's the wrong tone. Getting your foundation right is one of the most important things you can do. And there's a variety of different foundations. We have ones that come in tubes like this. We've got ones that come in pallets like this, like that. We've got ones that I squish into little pill boxes like here. There's a whole myriad of different foundations for you to try, and finding one that works for you is great. Now, with the invention of HD, we are now being told that we need to have HD foundations. Now this makes me a bit confused, because before we were told that we test the foundation on our faces, and if it disappears, you can't see it, then it's the right shade for you. But now we're being told we need a HD foundation that's invisible. So does that mean that the one before wasn't invisible? That even though it disappeared into our skin, it didn't work? It makes no sense. And so don't be fooled into thinking that you need a HD foundation. We can make high coverage, full coverage stuff look crystal, beautiful, clear, like your own skin. There are ways of doing it. There are tricks, and there are secrets that people don't know, that they don't use. And so don't buy into you need to get a HD foundation. You absolutely do not. You can make your foundation work for you right now, right today, and on somebody else, and have their skin look beautiful without having to pay extra for something that's got HD on. And I'll be using a cream foundation. I don't know which one yet because I've not started. Probably going to be Mud or MAC. It's going to be a full coverage foundation, and I'm going to show you how I can get that on the skin, and it's going to look like my own skin, just much better, completely flawless. But you're still going to see my skin, and I'll zoom in for you so you can see it. So don't worry about that. The other thing to think about is the undertone of your skin. Now, I'm not going to get too in depth about this, but just as an example, most of you out there, most of you are warm skin toned. That means you have a yellow undertone to your skin. Most of you. There are a very small percentage that have truly cool base tones, and they tend to be very fair redheads who actually, have truly white porcelain skin. They're the kind that would go in the sun and burn. They were the kind that would stay in the sun under shade and still burn. You truly are cool toned. Snow White was cool toned. Very dark hair, white skin, you're cool toned, almost certainly. If you go out in the sun and you burn but you tan, you've got warm colour skin. So just think, most of you will have warm skin. And people get confused because they see a lot of red in their face, so they go along to MAC or another place and they buy a foundation like NW's, which are a bit more pinky, and they think that that suits them because they're used to seeing so much red in their skin that when they try the yellow based ones on, they're like, oh no, I don't like that. But you probably are yellow based. It doesn't mean that you've got to look jaundiced, but you're probably yellow based, and you really do need to take that into consideration. Just because we have pink in our faces doesn't mean that that's our actual undertone. Best place to check is your actual neck here, not your chest, because that's exposed to sun. Just check your neck. See my neck? It's actually quite yellow compared to my face. And the last one is where to test foundation, and this depends on what you wear. If you're a guy like me, then the place to test it would be your neck, because you want your face and neck to match. With women, we tend to have this sort of section of our chests exposed, so you need to match it here. Okay, so if this, whatever shade this is, it has to match your face. Predominantly this shade will be darker than your face or your neck. The way we correct that is we can apply a little bit of foundation just here to blend, or use a bit of a bronzer. So depending on what you're wearing, most of the time women, you want to match your chest and not your jawline, because this is the lightest part, because our chin is in the way, it's a shadow. So always match your chest, and then your body and your face will be one. Powder. Powder comes in various forms. We have loose powders like this. We have pressed powders like this. Personal preference, it's entirely up to you. I use either, really doesn't matter to me. I quite like loose, and how we apply it is up to you. You can apply it with a powder brush, something like this, something with a nice loose bristle, something with a flatter edge if you really want to sort of densely pack it on. you can also apply it with sort of powder puffs and wedges, things like that. Anything really. You can just pat it on, press it on the skin. It is all preference. If I'm going to be wanting the makeup to last the entire day, then I tend to put it on with a powder puff. I'm just going to see if I can find one. There we go. So I tend to apply it with a powder puff because it just tends to last a lot longer, and I can control the amount. And you just get some into the lid, you press your powder puff in it, then you whack it on the back of your hand to knock off the excess. You then press your middle finger into the middle and just kind of cup it like that, and then you press and roll. You don't smudge or smudge or whatever, because then you're going to ruin your foundation. You press and roll like you're giving a fingerprint. You do that over the entire face, not under the eyes, it's too big. You then get a powder brush and you knock off the excess. And to set under the eyes, which you're going to see anyway in the application for it, you can use a much smaller brush, something like this, because you don't want too much under the eye, because getting this under, it's just not going to be practical. Or you can just use a sponge, which tends to be what I do. Just get some loose powder in it and pat it under the eyes, and that's it. And then, excuse me, you would just knock off the rest with your powder brush. But setting your makeup is of really, really importance. The only people that shouldn't set it are those with incredibly dry skin, because it's just going to look horrible. Just forget about it, think, I don't need to set it, my skin's dry, forget it. And that's powder. Done concealer in the last tutorial, so what we're going to do now is apply foundation, and I'm using Mud Foundation. I'm using the Shu Uemura Foundation brush, and I've got to say that with the Mud Foundation, this is probably the only foundation, with exception perhaps of MAC Full Coverage, that I can use this foundation brush and I do not need to go over the skin afterwards with a damp sponge to shear it out and make it more skin-like. So I'm really loving this. As you can see, I'm just kind of patting it on, brushing it on, circling it on, however I feel like it, and I'm taking it up high enough that I'm blending in this concealer as well, so that the whole thing becomes one. And again, just from the other side, so you can still see I'm pretty light under the eyes, but pretty soon this is all going to blend into one. And I tend to favor sort of circular motions. You can see I'm going over my eyelid as well, because that's important. But I do tend to prefer the sort of circular motion. It tends to blend everything in for me. And I've got to say, I can't go wrong with this brush. I really, really like it. It just seems to do the trick. So remember, you're going over your entire face here, but you're leaving the concealer. You want to blend it in from where we brought the concealer down quite far. So we want to blend it so that the foundation and concealer all become one, and the center part of the face becomes smooth and slightly lighter. And I'm just blending under my eyes again. You cannot do this step too much. Next, I'm blotting the skin with a tissue, and this is something I rarely see nowadays. But what this does is it takes off any excess oils from the foundation, and it also takes off a small amount of the foundation so that your skin becomes more lifelike and more skin-like. And this is something that you really, really need to do if you're working on somebody else's skin, because it makes the world a difference. Okay, strange looking face here. Once again, smoothing out any creases under the eyes. This is so important. I'm now going to apply a loose powder under my eyes with a sponge. You can see I'm applying it really close to the lash line. Now I'm taking a powder puff and I'm applying the powder in a rolling and pressing motion all over my face. And you want to think about giving a fingerprint. That's how you do it. You don't smush it on, because then you're going to disturb the foundation. You press and you roll. Next, I'm going to take a large powder brush and I'm just going to knock off any excess powder that may be on my face, and that includes the powder that's under my eyes as well. Now here's something that you'll never see. Take a Q-tip and go over any areas of your face where there are fine lines. I'm doing this under the eye. This knocks out any excess powder and creasing in the eye and smooths it out. This is an amazing trick. And thank you for watching, and I will see you next time. Thank you. Bye bye.